Silver Creek Studios, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac. The series losses are mounting. Is it time to panic? Or at the very least, time for some change? Let's look at the numbers and dig right in. All right, the Cardinals have now lost their last 5 series. In that span, they are 4-12. And if you count the final loss of the series against the Nationals, they are 4-13. Since being 20-10. If you recall, they were 20-10, sitting pretty at first place in the division. Since then, they have lost 13 of their next 17 games. So they're not looking very good right now. No surprise to anybody that's been paying attention. Since their our last episode, all 4 of the games were decided, or they scored 2 or more runs. So if you recall in that last episode, we talked about how their offense was kind of all or nothing. They were either scoring 0 or 1 run or 5+. There were never any of these games of 2, 3, or 4 runs. And of course, since we had that episode and that discussion, they've scored 2 or more runs in each of the last 4 games. So whatever that means, I guess it was a trend that was bound to break. They were inevitably going to score at least a few runs, but they have still not been able to get these wins. Their pitching has been failing them. Now, in the lone win that they did have in the Texas series, Dakota Hudson was the starting pitcher, and he went 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, and only 5 hits. So, a pretty good outing for him. You know, we still want to see some starters go 7 or 8 innings, but at this point, 6 innings is considered, well, it is a quality start with the 2 earned runs. But that's kind of a start that the managers and the coaching staff are looking for from their starters. And actually, they really don't want to see these guys go through the order a third time, which I guess is just sort of the way the game is going. I don't really like it. I'd like these guys to face the order 3 or 4 times. But statistics show that they're not as effective after facing these batters twice, so they're getting them out when they can. So, not a bad outing by Hudson. We were all kind of we've been down on him, and like we had a couple episodes, we broke down his stats and found he really hasn't been as bad as a lot of fans have thought. And here in his recent start, he looked pretty good. So, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon, even with Carlos being back in the roster. So. We'll get into that in a little bit. All right, in that game where they won 8-2, I believe, the offense scored 8 runs, but they were only 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position, and they left 9 on base. So they were obviously getting guys on base and knocking in some runs, but they left a lot to be desired. They could have actually done a lot more damage, which, kind of was an indicator of what we saw in some of these other games, unable to push home those runs. Today in particular, today's Sunday, this was the finale of the Texas series. We had a heartbreaking extra inning loss, but they did come back late in the game to tie it up and made it an exciting game. But they got to Texas lefty starter early in the game. In the first inning, they scored 2 runs. It looked like we were going to be able to get to this guy. I think he had Smiley, I think he had over a 6 ERA going into that game. So it's definitely a guy that we should have been able to get some runs off of. And it looked like we were going to. Had a lot of energy early on. And then after that first inning, they were even talking on the broadcast. If he didn't get that particular batter out, I forget who it was. If it was Fowler, I forget. But they popped out with a couple runners on. But they said maybe it was Molina. If they don't get to him with that batter, this pitcher might have to come out of the game in the first inning. They had a guy warming up. They had already had some mound visits. He was able to get that final pop out and, got to come back out for that next inning, and he basically shut the Cardinals down through the 4th before they went to their pen. So unfortunate that the Cardinals couldn't string any more runs together. They did give up the lead that they had, and Flaherty gave up the 2 runs. And then Miller later in the game, after coming back out for a second inning, gave up a solo shot to give the Rangers the lead. But then we did scratch across another run, manufactured a run there, which was nice to see with Harrison Bader, who we're going to get into his stats a little bit more in a minute. But tied up the game there, and then really made kind of a questionable managerial decision. Now, if you recall, Schilt was ejected from the game, but I don't think anybody thinks that he wasn't the one pulling the strings there. But they did bring out Hicks for a 3rd inning. Now, not a 3rd full inning. He did come in the 8th to face 1 or 2 batters, I forget. And then he pitched the 9th and then came back out to start the 10th. When he started that inning, he had already thrown, I think, 22 pitches. So that's not a ton of pitches, but it is for, your closer. And he hadn't been used much recently, which is why he was out there anyway. But they really, I don't know. I can see why, especially when you had that lead, why you want your closer to come out to close out that game and get that save, especially a guy like Hicks that has been very lights out and trustworthy. But anytime you're bringing a closer out, any reliever, but a closer especially, out for a 3rd inning, it just messes with their psyche. It messes with their mentality and their preparation, and I just don't like that decision. And a lot of people were second-guessing it after the fact, but I think there were people discussing it as an issue before the fact, and the fact that they didn't have anybody warming up at the start of that 10th inning either. There was nobody ready to come in if he got into trouble, and of course, he got into trouble right away. We brought Carlos in with the bases loaded and no outs, and he ended up, I think he struck out a guy, I can't remember, but then the sacrifice fly to shallow left field, where left center, I guess, where Bader caught it and was really shallow. I thought he was going to have a good shot at it, but he, I think, overthrew it. He was trying to do too much, and he threw it about 6 feet or 8 feet wide to the right of home plate, and the run scored easily. Game over. So, very frustrating loss. We had it right there in our grasp. I think with a little bit of better pitching and bullpen management, they might have been able to hold on to that. But, if they didn't keep Hicks in and they brought somebody else in who coughed up the game, everybody'd be yelling about, why didn't you keep your closer in? He looked fine. So, you can't have it both ways. But I did think it seemed a little treacherous. In fact, I was texting a friend at the time. I said, well, they're bringing Hicks back out for a 3rd inning. You never want to see, I forget exactly what I said, but basically I predicted that this might happen. So, it wasn't totally shocking to see Hicks give it up like that and put Carlos in a tough spot. I mean, there wasn't much he could do. But, keep the ball on the ground is what I would say instead of the fly ball, sacrifice fly. But hey, anyway, so a frustrating loss, lost 2 out of 3 to the Rangers. One bright spot in that series, though, was Harrison Bader. So as you recall, he hasn't been starting much. He hasn't been playing at all much. He's been coming in late in games for defensive replacements and pinch hits. But his numbers are pretty strikingly different as a pinch hitter than they are as a starter, and not in a good way. He's done much better as a starter than he has as a pinch hitter. And in particular, in this American League Series, on the road, we now had a DH, and so Bader could start, and we could still have Fowler's bat in the lineup, or Martinez, whoever. So what did he do? So he was 7 for 12 with 2 doubles, a home run, and 6 runs scored. So very good, hitting over 500 in that series. Now, I'm still not sure he should be the starter, but maybe. Let's take a look at what a couple of the outfielders who he would likely be the one to replace would be. So for the month of May, Jose Martinez is batting .288 with a .373 on-base percentage, .441 slugging, 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 7 walks, 12 strikeouts. And that's in, 2 weeks or so, a little more than 2 weeks, 18 days into May. But for the month of April, he was batting .400 with a .427 on-base percentage and a .514 slugging with 5 doubles, 1 home run, 4 walks, 11 strikeouts. So his percentages were much better in April, but his totals, he's already got 3 doubles. He had 5 for the whole month of April. He's already got 2 home runs in May. He had 1 home run in April. He's already got 7 walks in May. He only had 4 walks in April. And he's got 12 strikeouts now to 11 strikeouts in April. So his strikeouts are a little up, but his walks are up. His home runs and doubles are up. So in some categories, he's doing better, but in his average and on base and slugging, he's kind of noticeably worse. But his numbers were crazy good in April, so there was no way he was going to sustain that. He's kind of come back to reality a little bit. But, when you're talking about a player who's defensively a little bit of a liability, he's not hitting for power the way you would like to see from a right fielder. Maybe that's a candidate for a guy who wouldn't start every day. The other guy would be Dexter Fowler. I don't think anybody's talking about taking Ozuna out of the lineup. He's been one of our best hitters. He's leading the league in several categories, or near the top of the league. So Dexter Fowler in May is only batting .189. But he's got a .389 on base percent or .388 on base percentage, but only a .297 slugging. So his on base percentage is great. His average and power numbers are really bad. He's only got 1 double, 1 home run. Actually, today I don't think those stats counted today. So he had the other home run today in the 9th, I guess it was, and then 11 walks, 11 strikeouts. But in April, Fowler batted .343 with a .425 on-base percentage, .471 slugging, 6 doubles, a home run, 8 walks, 16 strikeouts. So he had crazy better numbers in April. His strikeout totals were high. His walks weren't as good as they are now. His doubles were better. So his numbers have definitely dropped off batting average-wise, but his on-base percentage is still pretty good. It's not as good as it was, but over the last few weeks, it's still been pretty good. His defense overall has been pretty solid. He's taken very good at bats. He just looks better. The announcers have noticed this too and discussed it on the air. He just looks more confident. His swings are better. He's not flailing at pitches like we saw last year. He just is a better hitter. So even though his numbers aren't really indicative of that, he passes the eye test, in my opinion. So I don't know that there's too many people scrambling to get Fowler out of the lineup. But again, with Bader looking much better recently, maybe he should be in there for a Dexter Fowler. So now Bader's numbers were not that great before his injury and before Fowler started playing every day. But they weren't horrible. They just weren't great, So it's not like we can say, oh, well, he shouldn't have ever lost his starting spot. He was the starter before. He got a little minor injury. He should start again. His numbers weren't that great, and Fowler came in and did a very good job, and so did Jose Martinez. So I guess Martinez was the one getting more of those starts with Bader being out. But either way, I don't think anybody's saying either of those guys should come out of the lineup based on what Bader did before, but based on what Bader's doing now, maybe they should. So I don't know. I don't think you're going to see either of those guys, Fowler or Martinez, suddenly sit in the bench, but they might get more creative with a way to get Bader into the lineup starting, maybe every other day, or starting in center one day and in right the next, or something like that. They're definitely playing matchups with righties and lefties, but and he does seem to hit lefties quite a bit better than righties, but he's actually been effective against both recently. So, it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem to make a decision about who to sit when everybody's kind of playing hot. So we'll see what comes from that. I don't have a whole lot more. I just really kind of wanted to point out it's nothing new. We've been talking about it for weeks now. The team has not been playing well. It's this up and down, all or nothing, inconsistent, but actually they are now consistently playing poorly. Like we said, 4-13 in their last 17 games. just not good. They've lost their last 5 series. Hopefully, what we've got coming up is Kansas City. It's a 2-game series. Hopefully they can sweep those 2 games and go into the weekend series at home with Atlanta with some confidence and hopefully some hot pitching and hitting. We've got Waka and Waino against Kansas City on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Michaelis, Hudson, and Flaherty against Atlanta. So honestly, that's kind of how I would want it to line up. I think Waka and Wainwright are more likely to succeed against Kansas City, and then Michaelis, Hudson, and Flaherty should be our most effective pitchers against Atlanta, who should be a better team than Royals. So we shall see. The standings, let's take another look at that. So the Cubs are still in first place with a 27-17 record. The Brewers are in second, 28-21. They are a game and a half back. The Pirates are 3 games back at 24-20. The Cardinals are now 4.5 back at 24-23, and the Reds are still in last place, 7.5 back at 21-26. So the Cardinals did not do themselves any favors this weekend, and today in particular, with their loss to the Rangers, everybody else but the Reds won in the division. The Cubs, Brewers, and Pirates all won today, so we lost another game on everybody. So very frustrating. There's that word again, frustrating. To see the performance that we're getting, even on a day that started out good, lots of energy, coming after a win. It looked like they were going to be able to take 2 of 3, and the offense just kind of fell apart and died until the very end of the game. And even then, the bullpen fell apart. And of all people, it was our closer, Hicks, who was throwing 103 and striking guys out. But he was not effective in that last inning, the 3rd inning of his outing. So kind of frustrating to see the pitching management there. Like we said, Carlos did okay when he came out. He had a pretty decent outing the night before, but we've got plenty of arms in the bullpen. They brought Helsley up too. Gant did go the day before, and I think maybe Gallegos. I feel like he was available. Miller started out okay, but gave up the home run. It's just like you could predict it too. Miller came back out for another inning, and he's facing a right-handed hitter instead of a lefty, and the right-handed hitter hit a home run. It's just, you can almost see it coming. So I don't know. I'm not sure at what point they're going to make changes. I don't know if they're going to make changes at all. They've tried a little bit with they DFA'd Gregerson, who was not effective for us. They did call up Carlos and Helsley, and they sent Leon back down to AAA. So I think that needed to happen. I do think we'll see Leon again. I think he's going to figure it out in Memphis and be a viable option for us. It may take an injury to open up a spot for him, or an injury or two, but I think we'll see Leon again. I hope we do. He's got a nice, lively arm, and he's been good for us. He was very good early in the season for us. So we'll see. I don't know. They need to get a fire going or something. They need to get Carp has got to get going. Goldschmidt's got to do more. He is supposed to be the linchpin, the rock that they can build on, and he has not been quite as effective as I think anybody had hoped. Probably as effective as he thought he would be. But we got to get him going, get Carp. DeYoung's been phenomenal. He just seems to keep on hitting doubles after doubles and knocking in RBIs and hitting home runs and just doing his job, taking quality at bats. So DeYoung and Ozuna have been very good. Fowler's been very good. Molina, has been what he is. It's crazy to just see this guy keep hitting doubles. It's fun to watch Molina play out his career. So anyway, we shall see. Like I said, I'm going to be going to the Kansas City games, definitely the day game on Wednesday. So if anybody wants to hang out, have a beer, I'll probably be up in the Budweiser Terrace, but we may travel around the stadium a little bit and check out some different places. So, all right, until then, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac.